are two things you may have noticed about what we just played there. Number one, we played in 4 different keys. The second thing you might have caught is that we basically played the same progression, the same chord structure, just in a different key. Guys, this is one of the best ways to really enhance your creative skills and really just break past that barrier. You know, when you're playing the same riffs or same type of riffs over and over, it's like, man, okay, I just need something different. Changing keys is a good way to do that. So we're going to get into this. I'm going to share this progression. We're going to go through each key change. By the way, if you are a Patreon member, you have the tabs, which you don't need tabs for this. It's based on power chords, but you also have the backing tracks, more importantly. You guys know I give you a full mix backing track, and I also give you a backing track without the guitars, with just the bass line and the drums, so you can really get creative with that. Now, hang around after the lesson because we are going to have our usual guitar chat. Got some cool stuff that I want to share with you. The first progression is in the key of E minor. Again, each of these 4 progressions we're about to go through are in different keys, and they are the same structure, and we'll talk more about that as we go through the flow here, okay? But the first progression is in the key of E minor, and here are the chords. Pretty cool. So we start out with that E power chord. I'm in standard tuning, by the way, here, and that's the majority of the time I'm in standard tuning. Most of you guys know this. So we're starting out with that E power chord there. We're going to move to a C power chord. Then I'm going to play a B power chord. I played that a little differently, and I'll share that with you. Just one simple little change that makes it sound cooler, in my opinion. So then we're going to go from there to the D power chord. So let's go through this one more time. I'll stop on that B power chord, that variation. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Whammy not required, but it's just cool sometimes. So you'll notice that sounded a little bit different than the typical B power chord, which would be this. And you can play that if you want. Guys, there are no rules to music. I'm just showing you an example, really just sharing a concept here, okay, that you can use and just run with it. Do whatever you want to with it, expand on it, all the good stuff. We'll talk more about that in the guitar chat at the end. But what I'm doing here with this B power chord is I'm playing what's called a B over a G. And in layman's terms, all I'm doing is taking that power chord, where you see my pinky finger there on the 4th fret of the D string, I'm just going to move it up to the 5th fret, okay? So listen to the different sounds with the regular power chord versus what I'm doing in this case. Okay, now let's apply that with this chord structure, okay, with this progression. Let's move on to the next progression. We basically just modulated on this, which means we just went a whole step up. So we were in the key of E minor. Well, now we're going to be in the key of F sharp minor, okay? Instead of that, we're in this. But we're just playing power chords here, right? So we start out with the F sharp power chord, and then again, exact same structure, guys, okay? And the easy way to do this, we just modulated, we went up a whole step. So if we're going from an E minor to an F sharp minor, from this to this, then all that means is we're going to move everything else up a whole step. That's it. So you could literally take everything that we just played, right? The E minor, well, we're moving that up to the F sharp, okay? The C, well, that's going to move up to the D, and so forth, okay? So again, let me go through the progression here slowly. One thing I did a little differently here, and I encourage you to really just take off with this stuff. you would have normally gone up, because again, we moved everything up a whole step. You would have normally gone up to this right here. Because remember, when we were playing in E minor, when we got to the C, the B, that variation of the B power chord, then we went up to the D. Since we move everything up, well, we would just do this, okay? However, I decided, instead of playing my E here, I just decided to play it here. So let's try that both ways, okay? Same thing, but again, that's just an example on how you can really just start to branch out and just do some different things. Like, let's say you're writing a song and that's your progression. Well, one time you may play that E, okay, on the A and the D strings. The next time around, you may decide to play the heavy E, right? That open E string, that power chord. So either one, there's no right or wrong answer here. This is just, again, an example of just many ways on how you can branch out. All right, next progression. What's cool about that is we're in the key of A minor, and we're basically just taking the same thing that we did with the E minor, and this will kind of be in the same positioning, but just moving everything one string over. So this is like a really easy shift in changing keys, okay? So we're playing the A power chord, then we're going to go to the F, then we're going to go to that really cool, like, you know, that E power chord, which in this case it'll be the E over C, okay? And then we're going to move up to the G power chord. So pretty cool. Let's go through that one more time. Now, you could do it this way. Listen to this. All right, you can do it either way, again, like we demonstrated with the E that we ended on in the prior progression. We got a couple of different ways that we can do this. I like those higher notes sometimes for power chords, because we tend, as metal guitarists, we tend to play in that lower range quite a bit. So I think this is a good way, a good strategy to break things up a little bit so it just doesn't sound so monotonous all the time. So if you're kind of stuck in your riff writing, and or you're writing a song, you're like, you know, we're in this heavy area over here, but I want something a little different. Well, try playing some power chords on those higher strings, right? Those higher, with the higher notes there. In this case, we're on the D and the G strings for our F, then that little E over C that we do, and then the G. Just gives it a different texture. And again, you could flip back and forth between the two. You could do this. That sounded pretty cool. All right, the last progression, we're changing keys one final time. Now we're in the key of B minor. Now, I made things simple. I didn't mean to make it this simple, but it just kind of worked out that way when I was writing this for this YouTube video here. We basically did the same exact thing going from A minor to B minor, okay, as far as like positioning, as we did with the E minor. So the next progression started a whole step up. F sharp minor, okay? So we went from the E power chord to F sharp power chord. In this case, this next time around, we're moving up a whole step from the A minor power chord, which, what does that mean? Well, that means now we're going to the B minor, the key of B minor. So A power chord, then the final progression starts with the B power chord. So everything just kind of like simulated what we did the first two times. We just kind of like roll down a string basically, right? We'd go from A minor to B minor. So starting out with A power chord to B power chord. Now, one thing I want to point out here, we're starting out on the A string with a B minor power chord, but instead of going over another string to continue, well, this time we're going back. Okay, we're going back to the lower strings here. So just watch closely. I hope that made sense. All right, here we go. Let's run through this one more time, guys. I'll put the drum tracks and bass on here for you on this one, and then we will have our guitar chat. Have some cool stuff I want to share with you. It's time for our guitar chat, guys, but real quick, if you do not have my free practice guide called Metal Riffs and Licks, download a copy of that. I've got a link in the description of this video. If you already have my free practice guide, then hey, check out my guitar courses. I've got a couple of guitar courses out there right now. The main one being Metal Riff Master. I know that's helped a lot of you watching right now, and thank you so much for the support, by the way. But if you're a beginner, if you're just starting out learning metal guitar, I've got another course that you'll want to start with called Metal Guitar Apprentice. That goes over the fundamentals of heavy metal guitar playing, and it's a good course too if you just need to revisit those basics, okay? So do check those out. All that good stuff is in the description of this video. One song comes to mind, and I absolutely love this song, by the way, when we talk about changing keys, like in the middle of the song and multiple times, and that's the song Poison by Alice Cooper. I'll never forget when I saw this video on MTV. This is way back in the day when MTV was, you know, cool, and they actually played music videos. And I remember they had Headbangers Ball, and that was so cool. And of course, they played all the really cool 80s hairband videos. But I'll never forget watching this video. It was so cool. I remember the drums were hanging down from these cool chains. And of course, when he would smack the drums, they had like this water splashing up. And you know, it's Alice Cooper. It was just a cool video. We're already getting off track, but you'll notice, go back and listen to this song. And if you've never heard it, look up Alice Cooper, the song Poison. In the chorus, or the pre-chorus rather, before he gets to the main part of the song, they change keys, I think three or four different times. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But they change keys in the song quite often, but they're using the same progression. And that's kind of where this idea came from. I was messing around in the studio here, and I was thinking, what can we do to really enhance our creativity? Okay, sometimes we get stuck, guys. Sometimes we get stuck with a certain way of playing. We kind of hang around those low notes, you know, and then that's just typical. I mean, it's heavy metal, man. It's just nice and meaty and chunky. Speaking of meaty, I'm kind of hungry right now, so I better wrap this up. But I did want to share this with you guys because key changes is a great way to break past that barrier. Oh my God, it's so, I don't know, I don't have the words to explain how cool it is, but when you have a progression, let's say you just wrote a riff, you've got a cool progression to go along with it, try playing that in a different spot on the fretboard, right? Maybe you started out with an open string, as a lot of us do, because that's where we get that chunk. Well, why not start that on the 2nd fret, 4th fret? Maybe the 3rd fret of the next string over. Doesn't mean you can't play the original riff that you wrote, but just try that same riff in different places, right? Replicate that in a different place on the fretboard. You will come up with all kinds of cool stuff. It's just going to be amazing. The funny thing is, when you start replicating that, you'll hear the differences, because some of those power chords and riffs that you go to, even though they're kind of the same, when you start playing those in a different key, it gives it a different texture, a different vibe, and it's just a great way to give your song, give your riffs that newfound life. It's just a cool thing to do. So I want to encourage you, go back through this lesson here, guys. Go back through these chord progressions, okay? And just play around with it. Maybe don't even play the power chords. Maybe start making up some riffs along with it, or maybe play the power chords and palm mute them. Whatever you want to do. We can get stuck. I get stuck sometimes, okay? I get stuck. And this is one of the things I do when I get stuck. I start changing the keys around. I'm like, well, I don't have to play it here. Let me play it somewhere else. And oftentimes you'll even come up with another completely different riff in doing that. And that's okay too. Again, it's all about expanding and just continuing to grow as not only a metal guitar player, but as a guitarist in general, and even beyond that, to grow as a musician. And this is just one of the many ways that you can do that. I hope this lesson helped you. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you have questions, or if you want to chime in, maybe you've got some cool things that you've done as far as key changes go, hey, drop those in the comments. I always read your comments and I do appreciate them. Guys, don't forget to check all the links I gave you in the description of this video here. Spend some time there. Got some good meat and potatoes down there for you. And I will see you on the next video. Until then, as always, keep it metal and keep playing music.